Hello. So today we're going to be talking about being deaf and shopping alone, or my personal experience with being a deaf woman and shopping by myself. If you want to check out any other deaf awareness videos that I have a playlist dedicated to every single one of those videos, so I'll have it linked up here and you can check those out after you finish watching this video. So I am someone who prefers to shop alone just because then I can go at my own pace. I don't always like to stand around forever when somebody else has their eye on something, like they're just walking around with me, but then they see something and then they want to go look at it and they take forever to look at it. I don't want to be involved in that. Even though I am that person that does the exact same thing, but you know how it is. You hate it when other people do the thing that you do. It's okay when you do it, but it's terrible when somebody else does it. So I do like shopping alone because then I can go as fast or as slow as I would like. I don't feel bad when I take forever to try something on and I just stare at it in the dressing room mirror for a while. But at the same time, I hate it because I've come across some very awkward moments while shopping by myself, and sometimes I just wish there was someone with me to kind of prevent that from happening. Now, I like to think that I have a good idea of how things are gonna go when I walk into the store. They're gonna say hello, they're gonna say how are you, and are you looking for anything? That is what I think they're always going to say, because that seems to be what is always in the movies, and that's what I have the most experience with. But sometimes it does not work quite that way. So I'll walk in and the second someone looks at me, I'm just like, hi, how are you? I'm just browsing. I know a lot of retail people hate it when that happens. I even do it by accident sometimes. I think that they're asking me, are you looking for anything instead of how are you? And I actually just say, oh, I'm just browsing. And then they look at me like, what are you doing? And then they'll explain the sales and stuff like that. And I just look at them like, okay. And then I walk away awkwardly. And there are moments when I've, like, for example, I had this happen at Plato's Closet. I was looking around, I was just trying to find something, and it was kind of crowded, and I'm just minding my own business, right? And as it turns out, there was this girl that was working there that was following me around the store trying to get my attention just to ask me how I was and if I was looking for anything. I don't know how long this was going on, but when I turned around, because I just kind of felt like there was something behind me, or someone, I turned around and she looked at me like she was so frustrated, and she's like, are you looking for anything? And I was like, oh no, I'm just browsing, you know? She just kind of looks at me like, yeah, okay, and then like walked off. Now when I am trying to actually find something, I've gone the route of being oral about it, and then eventually it gets to a point where I'm like, I can't keep doing this because I try to because I grew up mainstream, it has always been easier for me to do everything out loud, right? It has always been, I have been so used to going up to someone and asking, hey, I need help with this, rather than like gesturing it or writing it down. So I'm just always used to doing it the mainstream way. And that comes back to bite me in the ass, because then they'll start trying to explain all these things to me and ask me questions, and I'm just like, what? Because then I feel like it's so awkward for me personally to try to change communication in the middle of it and be like, oh yeah, sorry, I'm deaf, I'm gonna need to write that down. Because then I feel like almost they don't believe me, because in the beginning, I was just like, yeah, the blah, 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 like a hearing person. Now I try my best to always just write it down and be like, from the get-go, like, full-time deaf person, for lack of a better way to explain it. I just write down, like, for example, I went to Best Buy because I needed stuff for my computer, and I was gonna write down, yeah, I'm looking for a power outlet thing and an extension cord, and if somebody came up to me, I was just gonna show it to them, and that would be it. For the most part now, I also try to and have gotten pretty good at just dodging salespeople. This is easier to do at like Walmart and Target. Not so easy when it's at places like GameStop, for example, where the store is significantly smaller, or any of those small businesses like local clothing boutiques or something, or comic book stores. It is much smaller, and typically the front desk is like right at the entrance, so I always just end up feeling a little bit awkward like coming in and going, and that part of it's not even a deaf thing. It's just me feeling awkward if I don't actually buy something and walk out. But I'm sure that there have been salespeople, employees that look at me like I am a huge jerk, because I'll probably walk in and not know that they're talking to me, and they're probably asking me how I am, and then if I'm walking out, they're probably like, have a good day, and then I have no idea that they are talking to me, and I'm just like walking right ahead. Sometimes I feel like I might come off as a jerk because I just don't hear them, but they have no idea that I literally cannot hear them. And we all know that the first thing that probably usually comes to a hearing employee's mind when somebody doesn't pay attention is that they're just being a jerk and ignoring them. When it comes to checking out, that is awkward as hell for me. I feel like that is the most awkward thing, especially when they're they're trying to ask questions, like they're trying to ask if you have a rewards card, or if you want to sign up for their credit card. And sometimes I feel like if they're asking a yes or no question, and I'm kind of like, no, but then they look at me like, what are you talking about? I had this happen at Old Navy. I was trying to buy something, and this woman kept talking, and she was just like, her voice was very soft. I could not hear a thing at all. And she was actually getting a little rude about it, in my personal opinion, because then I was like full-time deaf person, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm deaf, I have no idea what you're saying, and she would just keep repeating herself, and I'm just like, I was just doing that. And then sometimes you have those people that make a little bit of conversation, and I'm just over here doing the bluffing and trying to nod, and then if they look like they're laughing, it looks like they're making a joke, I try to do a half laugh with them. And another example was I was making a return, and I had no idea what this person was asking. I was like, I want to make a return, and then she kept saying something. I was like, I have no idea what you were talking about. And eventually I was like, yeah, I can't hear you. Like, I'm deaf, I can't hear you. And eventually I understood her, because for the third time she's like, return or exchange, and I was like, I said return, and I told you I can't hear you, what are you doing? Like, you couldn't pull out a receipt paper and write that down, because it would have gone a whole lot faster. Because she also looked annoyed with me, just like the Old Navy employee looked incredibly annoyed with me, and I'm just like, I told you I can't hear you. It's not like I'm doing this on purpose. Like, believe me when I say that I don't understand you. Those are some of my experiences with shopping alone and not being able to hear most of what's going on. If you have any personal experiences, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm sure there are some great stories out there. But after you make a comment, and before you go, if you haven't, I do have my Patreon link down below in case you want to support my content and you have not pledged yet, or if you are not interested in being a pledge but you want to support somehow, I do have a coffee link down below. It's like a tip jar kind of thing, make a one-time donation. You don't have to do any of that, but if you would just like to, I just want to mention that. I will see you later. Bye.